Hi, I'm Josh Cadillac, and welcome to my podcast, Know Your Shit. I've been blessed to see great success, as well as seeing the bottom up close and personal in 2008. And if there's one lesson I've learned, is that if you want to have success and differentiate yourself from everyone else out there, you need to know your shit. As a successful real estate and crypto investor and an educator, it drives me insane that people do not immerse themselves in their craft. Everyone is so busy advertising and testing new sales techniques, they forget the most important thing, the product. Here I want to talk to the folks that got this right, the most successful people in the world in every industry. Bring them to you and find out what they learned in their business that made it great. When you listen to my podcast, you will know for sure that the topics and experts we have on have one thing in common. They know their shit. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Know Your Shit podcast, where our knowledge and pride in what we do drives us to excellence. My name is Josh Cadillac, and I'll be in the driver's seat for today's show as we learn how to stop doing deals and start closing for life. We have a great show for you today. Without further ado, let's get started. Today, we're joined by a really great guest, Jake Fletcher. I actually met Jake as a guest on his podcast. In fact, I think you were a student in one of my classes originally, Jake. Yeah. And that's kind of how we got together. And Jake is a real crypto guy, if you will. This is where his bent is at. And this is the class, I think that was the crypto class that we met in, wasn't it? And
correct, so yeah.
I brought Jake on here because, look, knowing our shit is what we're all about here. And crypto is a big thing. It's coming. It's here. And so I wanted to get Jake on here and talk a little bit about him. So Jake, thanks for being on here, coming to join us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So Jake, let's start with you. What got you started in the business? What brought you to real estate?
Well, I lost a bet. No. I actually, it's kind of funny because I was a touring artist for most of my 20s. For about 10 years, I was a touring musician and manager of my band. Shout out Telekinetic Walrus. Is the name of the band if you want to check it out. And so I hit 30 and I was doing everything that wasn't creative. Plus I was the front man of the band, so I was the band manager, the tour manager, booking manager, blah, 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 blah. And I hit 30, I guess 3 and change years ago. And I was just like, man, I work too hard to be, a struggling artist. And so thus began my search of what am I going to do? What am I good at? I studied music business at University of Miami. I applied for a lot of music industry type jobs. Most of them I was overqualified for at that point. I even had people with feet in the door, like artists at the labels and things like that. And I just wasn't getting any callbacks because we're in Miami. And even though I speak Spanish, I'm not idiomatically fluent. So if, Maluma walks through the door, I need to be like chop with the Spanish, And so after a few months of that, I was just feeling kind of down about it. Like, man, all these jobs, like I can do all these jobs easily in my sleep. And so I was actually driving on US 1 northbound on US 1 and 17th, right? Where Cazola's is for all the Miami heads out there. And it hit me in the head like a ton of bricks. I was like, real estate, duh. Like if this isn't going to be the city for music business for me, this is a great city for real estate. And I grew up in a real estate family. My mom was a realtor. My parents are both retired and are real estate investors now. And so I grew up around it and I always had an understanding of how important real estate was. So that was sort of my epiphany. And then looks like my video might've froze. Let me boom, bring it back. So that was sort of my epiphany moment, if you will. And a little bit before that, I had another sort of half epiphany where I was looking, before I got licensed, I was looking for a place to rent and I just couldn't get a realtor to answer their damn phone for the life of me. Can I curse on this? It's called Know Your Shit.
I would think it's probably safe.
Yeah. So I couldn't get a realtor to call me back for the life of me. And so I just had this realization, like, man, if I ever got into real estate in Miami, I would kill it because all I got to do is answer my damn phone.
That's my competitive advantage. I answer my phone.
Yeah, literally my whole marketing, I imagine, could just be Jake Fletcher. He answers his phone, and
Exactly.
it would just be, people would just be flocking to me. So that was my first little half epiphany. And then I had that later epiphany that was more like, okay, what am I going to do with my life to, to fulfill my goals and aspirations and, stop being a broke ass artist. So that's kind of how I got into real estate.
Good stuff.
But yeah, it's been a lifelong journey. So
I couldn't agree more of the assessment of realtors in general in this market. I say all the time, real estate's not something you have to worry about, clearing the high jump mark. You have to worry about tripping over the bar as you walk through the door. It's so low. The bar,
yeah.
and you would think it's only a Florida thing. But when I go anywhere in the country and I ask them, what percentage of agents would you say are bad agents? The number I get from agents is typically 80 to 90%.
Oh, wow.
So yeah,
Okay.
like minimum 8 out of 10 of people that we deal with shouldn't be in the business in the first place. This is the
Yeah.
industry. So it's no surprise that we have the reputation that we do. So
Right. It's unfortunate. Yeah.
what do you think makes you good at what you do, Jake? What do you think makes you good at this real estate thing?
Other than answering my phone,
Well, I mean, obviously that obviously is a major
I
game
mean, that's like
changer.
99% of my business right there. Now, well, it's an interesting question because, what I would probably answer might be different than what my clients might answer. So I'll give both perspectives, even though I can't talk for other people. I'll give you what other people have said. But what I would say is, listen, you will probably never come face to face in real life with someone who knows the Florida real estate contracts like I do. I know them inside and out. And this becomes an advantage to you as a seller or a buyer. I'm talking to them right now. Because if somebody tries to pull the wool over your eyes and say, hey, you got to do this, that, and the other, I can be like, well, no, actually, please reference clause such and so forth. And you'll see that what actually needs to happen is this, and that's happened so many times where people have tried to pull a fast one on clients of mine. And because I have that expert level of knowing my shit about those contracts, I've literally saved my clients, I don't even know how much money, but I would venture to say probably in the hundreds of thousands, even this, far into, I'm only in my 4th year of real estate. Another thing that I would say is not being afraid to fail. When I first got my license, this was before the pandemic, and I was in the office because that was, life back then. And I'd be in my little cubicle, just pounding the phones, just destroying the phones. And I had agents coming up to me who were like, 10, 20 more year veterans coming up and being like, man, you're crushing it, and not realizing I was brand new. I was a brand new agent, and they were trying to get tips from me about like, oh, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? How do you handle this and that? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I thought you guys all knew this already. I was just kind of just rolling by the seat of my pants, and so a lot of that I feel like was not being afraid to fail. Like you have to have some level of being willing to fall on your face if you want to get better at something and you want to succeed at something. Because if you're too afraid to try and you're too scared that you might fail, or someone might, God forbid, think that you look funny, or a fly lands on your shoe or something, then you're never going to start. You're never going to progress. You're never going to advance and get, not only get proficient, but become well known by other people for what you do. The third thing I'll say, because I like to work in rules of 3, that makes me great at what I do is I genuinely care about my clients. You can't overstate how important it is. If I was not a people person, I would not be in real estate. Like, if you're not a people person, don't get into any type of sales. Go learn how to code or something genuinely, because you really do have to care about people, because it's going to show through on the client side. If you don't, if there's even 1% of you that's like, I don't really give a fuck, then people are going to sense that. And ultimately it's not going to be in your favor. So the fact that I'm willing to forego making a commission because it's in the best interest of my client to not buy that property or what have you, people send me referrals like it's their job. Even before I'm done working with people, a lot of times I'm already getting referrals from their friends. I'm like, dude, we haven't even closed the deal yet. And I'm getting like multiple referrals from people just because they sense that like this guy actually gives a shit. So I would say those three things: being an expert on, and when I say contracts, be an expert of your industry, whatever you're in, not just the legal side of it, but be an expert of everything. You have to be an expert on the market. When I first got my license, every day I spent at least an hour for the first probably 9 months of my career, just studying the stats on the MLS, just trying to absorb like every little bit of information I could. That way, when I spoke to people, I could be like, oh yeah, average days on market is this. Oh yeah, we've had this number of new listings. Oh yeah, we've, blah, blah, blah. And, having that type of knowledge, whether it be the contracts, whether it be a knowledge of your market, whether it be knowledge of what it is that you do in general, will place you into a position of having expert knowledge from the consumer standpoint. So be an expert. Don't be afraid to fail. And give a shit, care about people.
So know your shit and give a shit would be your summation
Yeah.
of the. And I think you've taken a class from me. That's exactly where my brain damage comes from. All of my stuff is built along the exact same lines. The idea that you got to show people what the hell you're doing first, because they need to know that they can trust you to look out for them. And that's just a matter of them recognizing your expertise, because that's an important part. They need to know that you can help them solve the real estate problem that they have. Like, because this is the one thing that blows my mind. People, and I know you say people. I'm kind of almost in the other boat, which is like, because there's plenty of people out there that are good with people, but they don't necessarily aren't looking out for people. They're just good with people, and so
they're good at talking.
They're good at talking, but they're not really people that are looking out for people. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily a people person per se, but I definitely look out for my people. It's, it's how I'm wired. Right. And so that idea, that fine point that you were putting on it, which is really, really cool. The idea of showing them, why are they coming to me in the first place? Are they coming to me in the first place because they don't have friends? Do my customer, are they sitting at home? They're like, we're lonely. We should find a realtor. Then we wouldn't be so lonely. That's not what they're doing. The reason why they're coming to us is because they have a real estate problem. So if I show them I am capable, I know my shit, and I'm capable of helping them solve that real estate problem, that would seem to be job number one, to meet them where they're actually at. And then job number two, if they think I'm good, you know what? They might even be a little bit worried that I'm so good. If I can get them to buy that other thing that you were talking about, that I give a shit, that I'm looking out for them, that they matter to me, well, man, that's like having a brother in the industry or something like that. That's like having a family member that you can go to. That's like having somebody that's your best friend defending you for in court, right? They're going to do what's best for you. You're not worried they got 10 other cases or anything else like that, because they're looking out for you. And that's how you get the phone call 10 years after you close somebody saying, hey, look, we're thinking about selling the property. And, I get those phone calls like you're talking about, the referrals that come to you. I had one guy that called me the other day. He said, I want you to know you're a good man. I'm like, well, thank you so much. He said, look, no, you're the only guy I will ever do business with. And to me, that's music to my soul, because that's what my business is really all about, is leaving you with something when you're done with me that you will never get any. I mean, look, people send me plenty of referral business. All of my business comes, I don't advertise. I haven't advertised for years. All of my business comes from referral business. But having somebody put such a fine point on it and saying, I know that you're looking out for me. It's like, good, because that's what it's always been all about for me. That's what separates. Absolutely. That is the unicorn in the industry. That's what the customer is desperate to find, and what is almost impossible. Impossible out there to get. So
it reminds me of, I've had some like multiple clients who have, in one way or another have told me, hey, look, you're my realtor for life, and my whole family and everyone I know, you're their realtor too, even if they don't know it yet, and like you said, that's like the best music to my soul. It's the best compliment I could ever get. And then real quick, I'll just say, cause I said that I would, the three things that if you asked my clients, they would say, he's professional. He made me feel like I was his only client. and he was always able to, to help us out, or always able to answer the phone, or always there for us. Right. So again, professionalism, being accountable, and then at the end of the day, giving a shit about people.
Doing the work and showing
Yeah,
people you care, and treating people like they matter. I mean,
yeah.
treating people like you would want to be treated if it was you. I mean, it's not rocket surgery, as my brother likes
Right.
to say. It's
Rocket surgery.
it's not that hard, but
Yeah.
everybody is out there so worried that they're going to answer their phone after 5 o'clock or something. You call me, I'm going to answer my phone. That's what I got a phone for. Why would
Yeah.
you answer?
Yeah,
It's not.
I don't get the like, oh, well, I never answer my phone after 9 o'clock. It's like, I get putting up boundaries. Don't get me wrong. Like if I
Yeah.
had a client that all they ever did was call me at 11 p.m., I mean, first of all, I'm probably asleep. So, I'll hit you in the morning. But second of all, it's like, if that happened, I'd be like, hey, look, Mr. blah, 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 I'm asleep by 11 p.m. So if you really want to get a hold of me, you should probably call me before,
If you
like
want to get the
that.
version of me that's cognizant and aware of what's going
Yeah.
on, as opposed to the
But like,
groggy and half
I,
there
I kind
version.
of, I read one of those comments and it kind of got in my head. And then I got a call it was a text from a client at like 9:30. And there was a little voice in the back of my head that was like, you should set some boundaries by, not responding until the morning. And I was like, what the fuck else am I doing? Like
Yeah,
I'm,
exactly.
I'm about to get ready for bed. What am I going to do? I'm going to check the news or something. And I might as well just hit him with a text. Like, okay, yeah, no problem.
I mean, if I was running a sideline doing brain surgery and it was in the middle of surgery, yeah, maybe. But like I'm sitting on the couch watching Netflix. Seriously, like I can push pause. I mean, what's the big deal?
Now, I don't have
100%.
kids. I'm not married. So maybe that would be different. If I had kids and it was like kid family time, everybody has a different
Look,
situation.
I agree with that. There can be a need for boundaries, but I'm always of the opinion, why can't I do it? As
Right.
opposed to people that are looking for reasons why they shouldn't have to do it.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a great framing. I use that when talking to people. Like, what would stop you from selling your house? What would stop you from, if you found the perfect house right now, what would stop you from putting an offer on it? And I
absolutely.
phrase that for myself too. Like, oh, I wanted to start doing this type of advertising campaign or whatever. And then I start to think, oh no, that's going to be hard, or it's going to be this, da, 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 da. And then I think, well, what would really stop me from doing that? And the only answer is myself. So it's a good enabling, script flip.
Absolutely. The why not? Why
Yeah.
not? Why can't we? No, absolutely. Look, that is how all innovations wind up happening. Why can't we do it this way? And it's a great way to take and find a new space. Look, I mean, we've talked about some of the things. I know even in the class that you took, some of the ideas that we talked about, like just basic things that seem like they should be so. Like, how can this be? Like the fact that in real estate we don't advertise what's good about real estate. I mean, when was the last time you saw a real estate ad that actually, now that falls in the heading of like, well, why don't we? Why can't we? Why can't we tell the customer, like every other industry does, what's good about our product, and maybe have them come to us wanting our product more? Why can't we do that?
That's radical. I don't know.
I know it's nuts. It's right. It's really mind blowing. It seems like, and it shouldn't be. It's such simple stuff. But here's the crazy thing: the people that sell a real estate, the agents, they don't know what's good about it either. It's
That's
like the
true.
blind leading the blind.
It's a
And you
lot.
like,
There's probably a lot of consumers that know more than some real estate agents, unfortunately.
absolutely, especially when it comes to the investment value of the thing that we're selling, which is
Right.
huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
But the way that we met was we were brought together. Fate brought us together based on one thing and one thing only, which was cryptocurrency and how cryptocurrency's effect on real estate. So I know that's a space you're in. What got you into cryptocurrency, and what do you see on the horizon?
So I, I'm going to give you the raw, unedited story here. Okay. So
Behind the
if
curtain.
anybody has little kids in the room, I don't know, maybe cover their ears for a second, but a friend of mine bought some mushroom spores off of the Silk Road way
Okay.
back in the day because he wanted to grow mushrooms. that was the first time I ever heard of Bitcoin, because I was like, Silk Road, mushrooms, how does this work? And he was like, oh yeah, you know, you use a VPN or whatever to disguise your IP. And then you go and you get these things called Bitcoins, and then you can buy the mushroom spores. And I was like, all right, that sounds kind of crazy. And that was the last I thought about Bitcoin for probably 5 or 6 years. I think that was in 2009 or 2010. It was like right at the beginning. Homeboy ended up buying Bitcoin, and, you know, not going to say whether or not he bought mushroom spores, but let's just
Didn't
say
hear a
that
thing.
let's just say that he still has Bitcoin from that, you know, potential transaction, that were not utilized. And, you know, I wish that I had been in the market for mushroom spores at the time. So anyways, so that was how I was introduced into Bitcoin. Then in 2017, I was going down like a YouTube rabbit hole, and wound up hearing something about Ethereum and smart contracts. And the moment I learned what a smart contract was, I was like, oh shit, like this is huge. Like that's going to be a complete, you know, industry
Game changer.
changer.
Yeah, game
Yeah.
changer.
And so that launched off for me. And Bitcoin was at the time trading around like 2,500, 3,000. I was begging my parents, who at the time I was a musician, I had no money. I was able to put like $300 into Bitcoin back then, you know, so I made like you know, a few grand off of it. So I'm not like this Bitcoin maverick because I was poor, but I gained a wealth of knowledge that was worth more than a few $1,000s. That's for sure. You know, that's the story I tell myself. But
It's a good story. I
so
like the ending.
so,
Yeah.
so it led me down this road, in 2017. Once I believe Ethereum started to pop off, I had heard about it right before it had popped off. Didn't learn enough about it to like buy any at the time, but I was hooked on the concept. I was hooked on the technology, and I was mostly hooked on what I felt were the potential ramifications for society. And so for the next year, I annoyed the hell out of my girlfriend by all I would talk about was crypto. And all I did in my spare time when I wasn't, you know, I was teaching music at the time and also still touring. If I wasn't on tour or I wasn't teaching music, I was on Coin Market Cap. You know, I was on World of Coins. I was on, you know, the any news site that I could find talking about crypto, learning anything and everything I could. I was on YouTube watching videos of Nick Szabo, you know, the Antonopoulos, whatever his Greek ass last name is. I was just watching every video I could, learning every single thing I could about crypto. But more from a interest in the technology and the infrastructure side of it, less from like a, hey, I want to speculate and make money, because I didn't really have any money to make. So that was kind of how I got knee deep into it. And yeah, I mean, my love and interest in it has only grown since. Now lately I've gotten involved in the local crypto community here. As a lot of people know, our mayor of Miami, Francis Suarez, is you know, wants to make Miami the Bitcoin capital of the world. You know, we've got the FTX arena here. We've got a lot of major heavyweight crypto people in Miami. And I don't see it slowing down. I think the next 10 years in Miami, I'm very bullish on the next 10 years in Miami. That's an understatement. And you know, people will, like, we're still at an early point in the adoption curve, is how I look at it. Very small percentage of people own crypto. Even infinitesimally smaller percentage of people actually use crypto. So we're still in this sort of, I guess, like we're in this paradigm where the use cases are far ahead of the practical real world use of a lot of these currencies.
Mhm.
And I think that it's still catching up. And I think that eventually one day it will. Now, to going back to like your question of what do I see going forward? I mean, that's you know, a whole multiple books, like volumes of books
Sure.
we could talk about. But I see crypto continuing to be adopted. I see that adoption curve is going to continue. It's not going to go down. It's not like less people are going to be using crypto. It's going to be more.
Sure.
And
I mean,
I
I would.
think,
No,
no,
I
go
was, I
ahead.
was going to say, you're looking at what's happened, even with the inflation that's going on, that is just waving a red flag in everybody's face, saying, "Hey, look, your alternative to this isn't so good." And I think the real issue stems from it. Maybe we could, rather than to kind of put maybe some fine points on some of these things. The issue really stems from there's really no good intermediary of large quantities of transaction, large transaction amounts is what cryptocurrency seems to be good at. If you have a large amount of money that you want to do, because there's transaction fees that make it cost prohibitive to move small amounts of money around. And that seems to be the big stumbling block. So the idea of like Bitcoin as digital gold and all the things that they're trying to do to try to increase the number of transactions that the Bitcoin blockchain can handle, so that it transitions from that high quality long-term store of wealth that gold always was seen as, to this thing that we can go buy an ice cream cone with. And how do you bridge that gap? Because if I owned gold, I might sell gold to go buy a piece of real estate. And so Bitcoin for buying real estate, that actually scales to me. I see, because of the scope of the real estate transactions, I see people using the blockchain and Bitcoin in particular to take and make that deal, or Ethereum, something that's, an expensive transaction fee they're okay with, because the transaction fees in real estate are so high that, what's another $250 or $600 or whatever it's going to be to take and make the transaction.
And do it now versus taking time. And if it's over a weekend, yeah.
Exactly. So, and just that convenience, that peer-to-peer thing. And, obviously I have a whole class on closing crypto transactions from A to Z, all the problems that come up along the way. How does everybody get paid? And is the title company going to actually get the money and then distribute it? How many transactions are going to be done? So what do you see? I know you're in the space and you're paying attention to technology. What do you see that you think is going to take and transition this thing from being something that I think is going to be, it's already being used for real estate, is going to be, bring it to the place where I buy my groceries with crypto?
Yeah. And I mean, in answering that, definitely you brought up a really major key aspect of that, which is the scalability problem. And this isn't a Bitcoin problem. It's an issue with any cryptocurrency once it starts to gain popularity, because you have a network with 10 people, that thing is going to run like butter. You know what I mean? But when you put 10 million people on that same network, well, the subway system is getting clogged, isn't it? And so I think that, like, if I was Nostradamus, so whichever you prefer,
A prognosticator of prognostications. I get what you're going for.
yeah, if that's who I was, I think that Bitcoin will ultimately will have second layer solutions where the transaction speed will be quicker and the fees will be lower. I think it's going to take time to get there, because the network, of course, has to adopt it in mass. Therefore, and it's important to distinguish that what Bitcoin is, the use case, is so different than what Ethereum is.
Sure.
And just for anybody who's a little unclear on that, the way I like to sort of explain it to my parents who are boomers is, Bitcoin is digital gold. It's value. Ethereum is a contract. It's an if-then statement. So if I give you $20, then you give me a sandwich, or better be a good sandwich for $20, but you get the point. So
inflation's going.
yeah, it could just be an average sandwich nowadays.
Yeah.
But it's just like a piece of lettuce and a little bit of mustard.
It's like the difference between the Subway commercial and then the actual Subway sandwich you get. The Subway commercial, the Subway sandwich. Yeah.
Yeah. So understanding the difference there is crucial. And I think that Ethereum is much like Bitcoin. I don't think it's going anywhere, but I think that there could be other projects that rival the prominence or market dominance of Ethereum. I don't really see anything ever rivaling Bitcoin, just because it's like, how are you going to compete against Google? Or, how are you going to compete against, I don't know, like a Apple, I mean, Samsung can try, right? But the Apple has the market dominance,
Apple has to really screw up for them to actually ever try to supplant them.
Exactly. Yeah. But the thing about like Solana that I like, and I'm not shilling anything. I don't even own any Solana. But one thing that I like about the project is the emphasis on transaction speeds and being able to handle, I think it's like 40,000 or 50,000 transactions a second, which is even more than like Amex or Visa, for instance, which is more like 3,000 to 5,000 transactions a second. So, I mean, if you're talking scalability, that's a great solution right there. Just in that category.
Right.
So
they have other issues with the centralization and all sorts of other problems.
Yeah. Clearly they have other issues, and that's a big reason why I don't own any Solana. But the point is, there could be other Solanas that come along that are operating off a smart contract protocol that also have that fantastic scalability, that have, better, decentralized authority, and, in that, in sort of that aspect of it. And, I mean, the sky's the limit. I mean, how many projects are there right now? There's like, I don't know what, CoinMarketCap, let's go. You got freaking 19,430 cryptocurrencies listed on CoinMarketCap, right? Mm-hmm. 526 exchanges, right? I don't even know what this number is. $1.2 trillion market cap. That's insane. Like when I first got into Bitcoin, it had like a $1 billion market cap, so
it's the third largest currency by value in the world right now.
I didn't even know that. That's great.
It's behind the US dollar and the euro. That's it. I mean, that's crazy when you think about it. And the fact that it's a worldwide currency, the fact that you can go pretty much anywhere you need to, and you can transact in that place with that currency. It's quite amazing what it's done. I mean, when you think about what Bitcoin had to carve out, the massive psychological hurdle to overcome, that you're now going to transact value in something that is entirely intangible. Mm-hmm. It really is a huge hurdle to overcome. Yet a lot of maybe the missionary work was done by, us having Zelle and stuff like that. When was the last time how often you actually touch physical money? It's a very infrequent occurrence in most people's lives that they actually physically, most people I know don't have any money. Like I say, hey, you got cat, they can't pay the freaking valet a tip. Like, hey, you got a $5
it's funny. Bill? I had some cash the other day in
my outlier.
Yeah. It was like 2 weeks. I was like trying to find a scenario where I rather would have used my cash. And I'm like, every time I'm like, no, I'd rather, see this on my bank statement so I can add it into my, tax spreadsheet later on. And yeah, it took me like 2 weeks to find a situation to use this like $100 bill that I just had. That's the worst part of cash. How I got it.
Yeah, that's the worst part of cash, because like now if I do spend it, now I got to go replace it, which means I got to go to the bank, which is something I try to avoid at all costs, because they make that as a miserable process as they possibly can. Yeah. I mean, it's a thing. Like for me, it's $5 bills because, like the valet, you tip the barber or something like that. And I'm always running out of $5. Then I got to go to the bank to get fives. And it's just, because I still use cash.
all these valet and bellhops and waiters and stuff, they all have Venmo, they all have Cash App. Most of the time that I'm giving people tips nowadays, I'm like, what's your Venmo?
Really?
And I scan their Venmo. Yeah.
I am so not that cool yet. I have to upgrade my coolness factor. It's
well, hey, listen, it's it's as easy as 1, 2, 3.
But they have made it easy.
It's super easy. But to answer your original question about like what's it going to take to get to the grocery status, it's we have to have a practicable answer to the scalability issue with whatever currency that is going to ultimately be used for that type of stuff, whether it be Ethereum or Solana or Dogecoin or Shiba Inu or something like that. There's got to be that scalability, but there also has to be a really seamless user experience,
mm-hmm.
and UI, user interface. And I bring up Apple again, because I have an Android. I have a Mac mini, but I'm not an Apple.
You're not in a tent a week before the new iPhone comes out to wait in line for
Yeah,
you.
definitely not. And barely ever in a tent in general. But
Okay. I can buy into that line of reasoning.
yeah. So I'm not like an Apple, fanboy, but I do think they make good products. And what I appreciate about Apple the most is what I personally refer to as the Apple Store experience. And anytime I'm trying to create a banner photo for my YouTube, or I'm trying to create a landing page, or I'm trying to do anything with my business, I always try to ask myself, is this as professional of a experience and interface as what you would see at the Apple Store? Right.
Mm.
Because I feel like they set the bar for the user experience, and they definitely set the bar for the user interface, because it's just stupid simple. So simple that I have an Android, because they don't give me enough options on an Apple iPhone. I like to have the options. I like to customize my experience. Not everybody's that way. Some people want it, stupid simple, like, opening up, your Instagram, and it's just like, you got your profile and then you got your feed, and you can scroll through one photo at a time, and it's nice and clean, the emphasis on clean. So I say all that to say, there's got to be some type of interface where even my grandmother, who's
Mm-hmm.
blind in one eye and half blind in the other eye, can figure it out. And to that end, I genuinely feel like there will always be cash, because there will, at least for our lifetimes, because there will always be people who, like, just technologically they can't,
And Jake,
so
it's maybe because I'm sorry, I mean to cut you
you're
off
good.
there. I
Jump in.
remember, I'm a little bit older than you, so I remember the internet on the way in. And there's like, there's still gonna be people that the brick and mortar, and the brick and mortar still exists. But you know what? Grandma's on Amazon. Grandma's buying her stuff there. We didn't think
True.
grandma was going to get there.
True.
And so and the place that I've looked, and the place that I've tried to take and put, kind of place my bets, are on the folks that are doing exactly what you're talking about. The folks that are trying to figure out how to make this easier, the FIOs of the world that are trying to take and make the user interface an easier experience. I was talking to somebody the other day, a good friend of mine, and he's working on a wallet that's going to handle like basically any crypto. You send it to this address, doesn't matter what blockchain it's on, it's going to handle it. It's a cold wallet, the hot cold wallet, like it's going to do everything all at once. And I'm like, there you go. Now, if that holds your NFTs as well, one-stop shop for everything. How beautiful is that?
Yeah.
And that's, you're absolutely right. I couldn't agree more. Getting this thing to be smooth and simple. I mean, again, for the real estate transaction, because the real estate, you're not doing one of those every day. So, if it's a little bit of a pain in the neck and you got to call the title company and the wiring instructions, we already go through all that crap. There's all sorts of special things we have to do to facilitate this large and unusual transaction that we do.
Mm.
But getting it away from that, getting it to the place where it's like Zelle, open thing, put in the phone number, send the money. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah. It has to be equivalent to the same functions that you have with your fiat currency. It has to be the equivalent level of ease. Otherwise, it's going to take a lot longer to be adopted by people. And, you bring up a good point about, like, grandma is on Amazon now. I would counter to that and say, well, is grandma on Amazon more, or does she still drive to the store more? And that's why I feel like there still will be cash. How many people are using it is a question, right? That's up for debate. Part of it, I think, will be also due to the nature of how our government works, where, there's going to be a long grace period where they're kind of trying to get people to come on over to Fed coin or whatever it is. And that's going to take time, and there's going to be tons of people who just can't figure it out, and so I think that there has to be cash. But like I said, how many people will be using cash in 20, 30, 50 years? Who knows? You know what I mean? But ultimately, I do think we will be full digital. Like when I'm an old ass grandpa, we probably won't, cash will be like in the Smithsonian. They'll go, oh, we used to use paper bills with pictures of dead presidents on it,
Yeah.
and people will be like, oh,
Well, I
but
think
yeah.
I think there's one other piece to this that maybe we're not fully considering, because I agree with you to a large extent, but I think that the one thing that we've got to look at is we have so much more experience with UE than we had when the internet started. Because at the beginning of the internet, we had no freaking clue what the hell we were doing. Like,
Right.
what is a good website? What works for people? I mean, I know, like, I fly a lot. I fly an awful lot because I teach all over the country. And so I have the Delta app, and it sends me a notification now when my bag is showing up on the baggage claim. I can
love the
go on there and
Delta
pick,
app.
like, the app is better than the website. I can
Oh,
go
yeah,
move my seed. I can do whatever from the stupid
yeah.
app, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that didn't exist 5 years ago. That apps were better than the website. The website was always like the best. Like, even then, it was like, well, can I call? Where's the phone number so I can call somebody? Because I don't have to putz around and try to find that obscure button that's going to let me do what I need to do on the stupid website, right? Like, I need to talk to her. No, I don't need to talk to a real person. The app's even freaking better than a person. And so I think that the experience that we have, we kind of know what it needs to be. Because realistically, the Zelle experience is already figured out.
Yeah.
Facilitating that with cryptocurrency is what the next step is. It's simply plugging that in, somebody getting their head around how to do that with an interface that's as simple. What I'm saying to you is, it's not inventing something, it's duplicating something that already exists and just making it work in this different instance, I think. Now, what the mechanics of that are, I'm sure I'm saying something that's significantly harder to do. But will somebody crack that code? Absolutely. I can't imagine.
They're working on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, to me, the only thing that's kind of interesting always is, how do the people that are working on it get paid? Obviously they hold some of their native coin, and do they actually get enough? Does the value of the native coin become enough that it's worth it for them to take and invest their time, sort of thing? But yeah, there's a lot of every time I go to one of these crypto conventions, I'm always amazed at how many really smart people are working on these ideas. There's the people that are pushing the boundaries, and they're great. And to me, those are the ones that are making the what are they, the hyper cars, like the ultra super cars that are out there. They make 50 of them a year and they sell for several $1,000,000 a piece. But you know what? The technology on that is going to be on my car 10 years from now. Right.
Sure.
And so, like, while Solana, we're talking about just a little bit ago, they maybe have cracked one thing. The cool thing with Bitcoin, this is kind of the thing that I wanted to get to before, is they cracked enough things. They solved enough things with the thing that they did that they actually gave us something that worked. And the cool thing is the idea that they wound it up and just let it go, and nobody knows. That's just such a cool facet of what it is. But now we have all these other players in the space, a lot of them trying to make money for themselves, a lot of them trying to do whatever, but that they're out there, and each one is kind of, not each one, but several of them have facets of them that I think can be picked and chosen to eventually make something that really is that solution. I think that's what you were kind of saying. The Solana mixed with, a more diversified network, mixed with some parts from other players. If we can mix and match these things, we could actually probably get to something that's far and away better than what we even have with the current credit card companies.
1,000%, 1,000%. And it's going to take time. It has to take time. What I think is really important for people to kind of wrap their heads around is institutional money is just getting into crypto. They're just starting to get into the space. And I'm not a mathematician, but let's say that hedge funds are putting 0.05% of their allocations into, cryptocurrency assets. As their clientele start to call them up and say, hey, listen, I hear this Bitcoin thing's doing rather well, Jack, let's, I don't know why he's from the 30s, but, I want you to allocate, some of my, portfolio into this Bitcoin. Why am I not, making money off of this? As that happens more and more, and, these hedge fund managers and so forth, become more comfortable talking about it, understanding the industry, and being able to consult their clients effectively, then inevitably you're going to have an increase from that theoretical, I don't know what the percentage is, but that 0.05% is going to maybe turn into 2%. Right. And, well, what happens then? Right. That's like a 200x or something. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, hey, I'm down for 200xing my, investment potentially. Right. So from just an investment standpoint, again, I like to just reiterate to people that like, we're still early in that adoption curve. And it's important to kind of understand that, because once the institutional money gets in, the space changes forever. 100%. And that's when you really did miss the boat. A lot of people now like to say, oh, I missed the boat. I could have gotten in Bitcoin back in, when homeboy was buying mushrooms off of, Silk Road. But at the end of the day, first of all, you have to accept the journey that you're on and appreciate it for what it is. But also too, I mean, if Bitcoin ever is worth $500,000, which is what I personally think that it will one day be worth, at least, I mean, hey, it's less than $30,000 right now. If you could buy something for $30,000 that one day is going to be worth $500,000, I mean, that's like buying a house in like back when there were single family homes in downtown or Brickell here in Miami in like 1978 and still owning it now. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's insane. That's like having a time machine to be able to do that would be incredible. Right.
Sure.
So I think that's really important for people to kind of wrap their heads around from an investment standpoint. From a technical standpoint, things get a little bit more gray. I'm not a developer. I took one coding class in college. So like I have no cred in that respect. But what I know is that it's extremely difficult and time consuming to write programs that work flawlessly. And that's to the point that you mentioned about Bitcoin actually works. The fact that it actually works as well as it does is nothing short of an anomaly, in my opinion. Like the fact that somebody created, and it also too, what's interesting is that it was in some ways a response to the 2008 financial collapse and what was going on in the world at the time. And so, the fact that somebody was able to respond to that situation in such an somebody or some people, I don't know, who knows who it was, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that people or someone was able to respond to that situation in a way where they created this protocol that has now changed the world. I mean, straight up, and has continued to show that, the only real deficiencies in the armor, so to speak, are people themselves, which, surprise, surprise, the people who crashed their self-driving Teslas are the ones who, jumped in the back seat at, when they went into launch mode or whatever, you know what I mean? So, human error, no surprise that that's where the deficiencies are,
Yeah.
Another important thing to sort of grasp for people, especially anyone listening to this who's kind of getting into the world, is you really got to understand how to hold your coins, and understand the various ways to hold your coins.
Sure. And it's a thing. I mean, 100% when we're talking about, this thing being Bitcoin being a response to the housing crisis of 2008, that is a big deal. I mean, it really was. And for those that don't know, nobody really knows who created Bitcoin. There was a white paper that was sent out. The name on there is Satoshi Nakamoto. That's all we know. And they set the system up, and it just runs. And the problem that it has, really, I mean, we're talking about, yes, user error, like you lose your seed phrase, but the issue that it really has is that it's become so popular. The number of transactions that people would like to do on the thing exceeds the current capacity almost. And so that's what a problem to have. It works so well that it's running into those kind of first world problems. And so you're right. I want to take and just explain that to people, because we're talking about, this mysterious founding of Bitcoin. And for those that don't know, that's where it comes from. It comes from somebody that basically, the white paper said, because of all the corruption that went into the bailouts and everything in 2008, they wanted to make something that was separate and distinct from that couldn't be interfered with from the outside. And what's crazy is with Bitcoin, Nobody has interfered from the outside. The blockchain still, it runs. It just runs. It's a pretty cool thing. Back to what you were
Yeah.
saying, Jake, about holding your coins. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I wanted to kind of
Oh no,
circle back to that.
yeah, you're good. And I'll add to what you said real quick. If anybody wants to go down a fun rabbit hole, just go Google cypherpunk, which is those were the group of people who were really into this whole, like, I guess the way to put it is like revolutionary almost coders that were just really into cryptography. And it's believed that somebody or some group of people within that group of cypherpunks that I don't even know when it was founded or anything like that off the top of my head, but it's believed that they were the people who actually created Bitcoin. I actually have an opinion on who, or not an opinion, I have a guess on who was involved in the founding of Bitcoin, if we want to go there.
Sure.
Which is always a fun thing. I always like to see what people think. I think that it was probably a group of people, like at least 2 or 3 people. But I feel relatively certain that one of them was Nick Szabo, which if people want to look into Nick Szabo, it's spelled Nick, Nick, and then Szabo. Yeah. And Nick Szabo is a computer scientist, part of the cypherpunks, cryptographer, who wrote a protocol called BitGold right before Bitcoin came out. And there's some other various links that are, potential, signs and pieces of evidence, but I'll let you guys go down that rabbit hole, the viewers, if they want. But yeah, back on the, or well, actually, before I go into something else, do you have any suspicions as to the creators?
I am content to leave it a mystery.
Okay.
I actually think that almost adds more to it. There's a thing down here in South Florida called the Coral Castle, and it was always a mystery. The guy that did it is this little guy, and he got these huge stones and built this whole thing himself, all by himself, with no real tools or anything. And nobody ever knew what he did. And the only thing he said, he used to say it was like for his star or something crazy like that. And so that was always like this great mystery and everything. And eventually they found out it was this girl that kicked him to the curb back in his homeland. And he came over here to run away. And like when I found that out, it was like the story wasn't quite as good. So for me, I'm okay living with the mystery. I think it makes the story a little bit better.
It's like they say, don't meet your idols, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It'll always be a disappointment. Yeah. So going back to holding your coins, this is something I always feel like it's overlooked by a lot of people, and the importance of it is hard to overstate, because there are different ways to hold your coins. Primarily, you have different types of wallets, right? They're called wallets, just like you put your cash into a wallet, you put your coins into a wallet, except it's not, made of leather. And well, I guess it could be, but
Yeah.
generally not. So you can have either a hard wallet or a soft wallet. A hard wallet is a physical thing, like a little of course I dropped it, a USB drive. A soft wallet is going to be, basically keeping it in either the hard drive of your computer or somewhere where it can be accessed somehow online, right? Then you have a hot wallet and a cold wallet, right? A hot wallet is going to be something that's connected to the internet, right? So if you're holding your coins on Coinbase, then congratulations, that's a hot soft wallet, and it's the riskiest type to hold your coins. If it's a cold wallet, that means that it's disconnected from the network. So my USB drive that I dropped, boom, which this is not my wallet, but just an example of a USB drive. That would be, when it's not plugged into my computer, is a cold hard wallet, and it's the most secure. So you have cold hard, you have cold soft, which would be like if it was stored in a hard drive in your computer, but it was a disconnected partitioned hard drive that wasn't connected to the internet. And then you have cold hard, cold soft. Then you have a hot hard wallet, which would be like if this was plugged into my computer and connected to the internet. And then you have a hot soft wallet, which is like holding it on Coinbase. So I hope that makes sense to people. But from a security standpoint, a cold hard wallet is the best. From a convenience standpoint, a hot soft wallet is the best, right? So a lot of people will try to have like an in between, So it's important to really learn a lot about how to store your coins. I also recommend to people to not ever put your passwords into your phone. At least not any passwords that matter. I always recommend to write your passwords or passphrases or seed phrases, to write them down in a little book, and then go write it down in another little book and keep that book somewhere totally different in case, your gets lost or your house burns down or something. So that's my opinion. Because you're probably, your biggest risk is somebody, either you lose your phone, somebody hacks your phone or something like that. Hackers have gotten really creative these days. And that's probably your biggest risk of losing your cryptocurrency, is if you get breached somehow, right? So it's really important to know about how to store your coins and also how to protect your data. So that's my kind of little like brief condensed 2 cents on that.
That's awesome, man. So let me ask you this, and thank you for all of that. That's great content. If folks wanted to see you, want to see your podcast, wanted to know more about you, where can they find you?
Yeah, it's all about my YouTube channel, Jake Fletcher, Miami Real Estate. Just search me on YouTube and you'll find me. On Instagram, you can find me at jake.miami. And everything that you could possibly need is going to be found through those two things. So
awesome. Jake,
yeah.
Thank you for your time, folks. Thank you for your time, Jake. Everybody, thanks for listening. Hope to see you again soon, my friend.
And absolutely.
Thanks for coming
having
on.
me on.
Of course.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for everybody listening, and make sure you know your shit.
Absolutely. Take care.
All right. Thanks.